it's your need, not his, or it was. You need to be there, not his. That was responsible for the whole dynamic of your interaction.
Yeah, there is a lot more to about it than just like that.
Yeah.
Because I think I don't want to I don't want to put some emphasis on a particular justification about his action or function,
Yeah.
But there are two very important aspects. One is when somebody is really interested in him,
Yeah.
it already set in motion something in him which is very congenial to the energy that is going to be received. Because in any animal kingdom, any interaction, anything, what we call this friendly interaction or anything, it's obviously there is something in you which is in operation, finds a purpose of its own operation when it affects the other in similar kind of operation. For example, if somebody is with me and is producing certain amount of curiosity about me, but he has some defect, say some disease or something, the only way I can continue this interaction by making him healthy. It's very simple, isn't it? So what is health in this regard, which is very different? Different is, it's a functional order. Functional order means, say you have some kind of spurious notion of the world, of the condition that you have come through, the way you have learned to look at human beings, the way you have you are taught to identify good, bad, or good looking, bad looking, or social prejudices, all these things. Suppose if I see these things in you, and which is very disturbing to me, so the only way we can maintain a friendship if I can eradicate these things in you, this basic conditioning that is actually standing, I feel, on your way to express yourself most efficiently. So I felt that the energy that he had was always addressing those kind of fundamental social conditioning and the wrong assumptions that we had. And it was always hitting the core about our, what we call is normal response. Our normal response is not so normal. It's deeply conditioned. An Indian person has been, the families are so conditioned that when they get a dark baby compared to a fair baby, there is a hue and cry, because it's in the marketplace, it's very different. Even now, I mean, I'm not joking. You know, they brag about somebody is very fair and not fair and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So his energy, which I think was at its peak, because once somebody is engaging him, since he didn't have all these conditions were completely eradicated somehow, not by analysis, mind you, but by some process which completely altered the information processing itself. Thereby, the outcome of his take on the world was very different. You wouldn't see me as anybody other than somebody who is interested in what he was saying. Not from my background, but from what I was saying. So whether I had a background of a Christianity or Hinduism or some untouchable background has just no matter, nothing, it has no bearing. The bearing is the information that I had, which was not my fault because that is the way I grew up, has created a conditioned response in me, and his energy was addressing that only. So it's immaterial of...
To do what though? Like what's the matter?
To help the person to function at its best.
And the conditional response is interfering with that.
Interfering with its most elegant response out of itself. Because often it creates a very disturbed sense of equanimity inside us.
The sometimes challenge I have in relating to understandings together of what I'm hear from you is as you describe it there, and it's maybe my misconception of hearing it. When I read in Mystique of Enlightenment about the calamity and everything around that, you have this sort of idea
mystical image
of it as some supernova event, explosion of cosmic proportion. Like Yuji even says, the whole universe was shaking, kind of thing, you know. And I, in my limited experience of having some very few powerful experiences, know that things way out beyond the bounds of normal is possible. So, okay, wow, maybe that was that, and I'm interested. And then as you describe it, sometimes I can get the sense that it's almost like a fine-tuning of the operation of the sense perceptions, which doesn't sound any less extraordinary or remarkable. It's a lot more easier to actually relate to it as you, and it makes it sound much more feasible in a certain way. But it's hard to link these two things as though this, what you're describing, is all that happened to Yuji. Because with Yuji it sounds like something even more extraordinary than just the proper functioning of information in the biological organism.
Didn't it essentially say those things towards the end?
Definitely. But that seems like that was the side effect or the outcome
of
this truly
explosive happening.
Some like only happened to a few
individual in the history of humanity,
which is probably a misconception, but definitely a conception nonetheless.
Yeah,
and maybe it isn't a misconception. I don't know.
It's not a misconception.
No, it's very rare, I guess.
It's rare, but I don't want to sound like a copycat or anything. Even though I am telling in a very gentle manner and this way, but you really can experience of the pain and relief of an withdrawal as deep and as powerful as our desire for knowledge and understanding. If anything that makes you withdraw from such thing, it's a real calamitous thing inside. It just works in a very different way. That's why I don't want to give a kind of wrong connotation. The first onset felt like somebody stabbed me from behind. Literally, when it first snapped, I just passed out. And it was not just once. The system went into a very different kind of function in a way that every time my usual functioning, which was required to sustain one type of thinking, I was forced to carry on that, and the way the whole system responded was almost like you die. So I didn't want to make it look like that. For example, if you go and see in a drug addiction center, somebody will be just writhing in pain when they don't get their high. When they didn't take those heroin, they didn't have those things. So the withdrawal is extremely deep and powerful. That is the calamitous thing. That the pain, that the sensation that goes through inside you, and you cannot do anything about it. It's an internal process, which is something like something is stopping you from within, not allowing you to function that way, usual way.
So why do you say that it obviously, maybe this is a stupid question.
No, nothing is stupid.
How rare do you think that occurrence within the human species is? Obviously, it's very hard to know that, but
it's very hard to know.
But do you feel like it's similar to attaining enlightenment, kind of rare, or because it's something that's physical and possible for every organism? You don't need to meditate for 30 years for it to happen.
Even if someone meditates for 30 years, it's just matter. Nothing. It just doesn't matter. It's that's the reason even in Indian scripture, it's always writing whomsoever it chooses. It's almost like in your lifetime you are going to produce 1 trillion sperm, and nobody can number it and say that which one is going to make it. Which one is going to make a next Matt? But everyone is potential. Every single one is potential. So I don't want to compare anything, but since the nature functions in a very different way, then we tend to perceive and want things like that. So I don't know what to say about the reality of it. It's impossible for me to. You can ask me, anything happened to me other than explaining those physical experiences? I don't know. But yes, I absolutely believe, not believe, but it's like the way his body was responding to the way he was gesturing and things like that. It's almost made me feel that there's a familiarity. Like that's what I felt within me, the way the body will twist, turn and try to align. That's the way the whole thing would operate. But you see, this is so subjective. There is no science behind it.
Do you think there could be a science behind it?
It looks like should be. Science in a sense that the operational aspect of it.
Because there's some mechanistic property to it.
It's the physical property of the system.
Why do you think? Because one of the things that sets Yuji apart in relation to most spiritual teachers, to put him in that frame, because most people encounter him in that frame, is his emphasis on the physical aspects of his transformation.
And impossibility of it.
And the impossibility of it. Yes,
that's the most important thing.
But even like you said, in old scriptures, they have the whomsoever it chooses.
Yeah.
But still, you have chakras that Yuji wanted to redefine or reappropriate as glands that were dormant and become active and all that. But why do you think that sages, even ancient up until now, resisted the language of physicality, of the physical operation of the organism? Because obviously they all had bodies, and obviously they were very much into observing what was happening to themselves, and yet they still wrote about it and described it metaphysically as opposed to physically.
Because it is something to do with the subject. It is something to do with the subject. If I don't talk about it, there is nothing. It is my expression. And this expression has a different kind of knowledge background.
Than Yujis.
Than at every different stages of human evolution.
Yeah, I see.
See, at whatever I can talk to you is what the existing knowledge at this present time, and which extends up to the past. Okay? Somebody who comes after some time, if somebody encounters something like that, he will express in a very different way. What I know, I can use it as an information to express myself, is going to be a very outdated knowledge after some time.
But there's implications from metaphysical descriptions of the ancient scriptures and things like that, which posits a sort of transcendental reality of spirit that is not affected by the coming and going, and sort of timelessness and all these notions that have zero
understanding.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that was the only social background they had. People were only talking about that. The spirit, something immortal, something this, something that. And that was the only thing that they talked about. There's very little, but also at the same time, there was a tremendous emphasis on reality and illusion.
Yeah.
Ephemeral and real. What is, and where the knowledge stands. Those also were there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now the knowledge has been reformed ever since, it's constantly. Why knowledge reforms? Because what one tries to explain and observe, as one knows more about it, it changes. Isn't it? So one thing doesn't change, of course, is the relationship between the knower and the system. Your ability to see the world the way it is, your acuity of vision and everything, all those definitions still remain same. But the way you are perceiving yourself in relation to your body and the world is very much similar, only the type of information is different. Those days they were talking about the spirits, now you talk about the black hole and consciousness and superconductivity and alteration of egos and things like that. They had different kind of knowledge, you have different kind of knowledge.
Why do you think, with you had a scientific background that a certain, I don't think you're, I don't experience you as dogmatically materialistic.
No.
But
otherwise I wouldn't venture to find the relationship of me and my desire.
Yeah.
How valid it is in
Yeah.
terms of my existence.
Yeah. But because you have a scientific background, but Yuji didn't really have a scientific background. What do you think it was that?
But he was very keen in understanding the difference between intellect and functioning.
But isn't that true? I mean, you have a appreciation for it far beyond my own, of the contrast of Yuji to what came before him, and that there is not just a slight variation, there's a very radical reformulation. Where do you think that possibility that Yuji could discover that reformulation, where did that come from in him, in his background? Do you know what I mean?
No, it's not background.
No, it wasn't.
It's his profound experience. The experience that shook him from the core didn't give him any additional knowledge. That made him almost certain that it's nothing to do with the field of knowledge. It's not by talking to him you will learn something in the information bank that will produce a confidence like that. That the advantage of natural thing is like you don't need to fly from North Pole to South Pole to have all this knowledge. The birds are doing it on a regular basis. The confidence that comes is a very different thing. It's nothing to do with the knowledge. That's why the inference that you're going to draw out of this experience is still a bunch of knowledge, ideas. What precedes what? You're trying to explain away the law of the universe and how we came about and things like that. It's still in the knowledge game. That's the whole point. The one who experiences anything is not in touch with anything. It's a process. You propose, you create a model, try to do experiment and see how much that model fits to the way everything works. When it comes to experiment with yourself, all these things breaks down. So you are not going to, and that is the profundity of the experience, that when something hits you very hard within, you don't want to fall back and tell that, okay, I now know for sure there is a God, or there is no God, either way. Or there is a Brahman, or there is this, there is that. So it's not in the framework of knowledge at all. You didn't get an additional information or answer that kind of questions. And the certainty is that you will always use your language to explain, and that will fall. That will not give you any power to be one with the process that is going on inside you. You're never going to be. You will never know. That's the basically thing. As you expect you would know that there is something. You can explain your state. That's false as far as I'm concerned. You are never in touch with anything inside you. That confidence, because that's the lure of the religious game or the spiritual adventure or whatever you call. One day you will discover something that's the truth that will set you free, or some such thing. Achieve a state of mind which is. It's not the question of a very depressing end. That's how it sounds like. That's what many people experience when they read Yujis. It's very depressing. What gives him that authority? You have, everybody has that authority. Only thing is that you have a hope. Whenever you close your eyes, you know you are not in touch with anything.